Hello guys, my name is Nicolas Hillebrand and today I want to show you a quick lap guide for the next track on the schedule of our current World EX season, the 1966 layout of Spa-Francorchamps and the Ardennes forests. Unlike the modern 7-kilometer layout, which is now a fully purpose-built venue, this legendary 14.1-kilometer circuit that rivals the old 10-kilometer layout of Monza in the same time period in full speed percentage over the lap, was exclusively public roads for most of the year, which shows over the entirety of the lap, with houses right at the side of the circuit, filled with people that hope you won't turn into the newest furniture edition in their living room. Drivers in the 60s boycotted this layout because it was too unsafe, with cars reaching higher cornering speeds and top speed through the revelations of new engine technology, chassis construction, and of course the advent of aerodynamics. Drivers were reaching up to over 320 kilometers an hour around here, with cornering speeds at Bournonville already reaching over 200 kilometers an hour without aerodynamics or barriers to save you if the tires gave out. Luckily, we are far more sensible and only reach top speeds of almost 380 kilometers an hour around here, with the average cornering speed at Bournonville being around 320 to 340 kilometers an hour. Of course, it helps that we are in a simulation and not the real world. The layout of Spa we look at today was the layout used for the Belgian Grand Prix from 1947 to 1969. A very nice thing about this layout is that besides the current permanent layout, most of the track still exists as country roads around the circuit, so when you're actually there in real life, you can still experience a little bit of history for yourself. We start our lap like the race start of the Spa 24 Hours, across the start-finish line, down on the way to Eau Rouge. It still goes over a narrower bridge here, so the corner is way tighter than nowadays, but we make it across fine to move up Radillon, one of the most iconic corners in World Motorsport. This is also tighter than nowadays. Before this corner, actually, Eau Rouge led to the left, into a hairpin called Virage l'Ancien Douan. But the organizers decided in 1939 that that corner was not cool enough, so they started using Radillon instead. After Radillon, we had over the not-so-straight Camel Straight. After a few kings and weaves, we brake hard for Les Combes. At this point, a medium to high-speed 90-degree left-hander after a quick right-hand kink, to take our leave from the location of the current Grand Prix circuit and enter the domain of fast country roads. The first corner we get is the fast Haute de la Côte chicane, before making our way to Bournonville. Since we have quite a lot of downforce in this car, it is easily flat out, and we work our way over the right-left-right combination of Malmedy that includes Brian Crest. After this insanely fast section, we get onto the Master Straight, getting to our second highest speed section of the circuit that leads up to Master Kink that isn't really a kink. This section is one of the most iconic and important sections in World Motorsports and World Motorsports history, as this was the site of a huge crash for F1 World Champion Jackie Stewart, where he remained trapped under his car for 25 minutes while being doused in fuel that was spilling everywhere, until fellow drivers Graham Hill and Bob Bondurant, who crashed nearby before him, managed to rescue him from the car, utilizing a spectator's toolkit. After he had been rescued out of the car, they put him on the back of a nearby pickup truck, waiting for an ambulance, which took another 14 or so minutes to arrive. It then took him to a hospital at the racetrack, however there was no doctor there. This prompted another ambulance to take him to the next closest hospital, which also didn't go smoothly as the ambulance driver got lost on the way. This experience, which easily could have cost Stewart his life, ended up being his starting point for his crusade for higher safety standards, not just in Formula 1, but motorsport as a whole. After surviving the most dangerous kink that isn't a kink in motorsport history, we get onto the Hollowell Straight, to reach the fastest top speed we can reach by ourselves on this lap, 370 kilometers an hour. Then we turn into Hollowell, narrowly missing a parked car on the side of the road on the outside, before we go over a bridge onto the original Stavelot, a fast, banked right-hander that you can take flat out in this car before making your way back towards the general area of the start-finish. After this torture for our tires, we continued through a fast section of Kings called La Carrière, using an unknowing Belgian man's front porch as our corner apex for the right-hander, and take it completely flat out once again. Then we make our way down the straight, back to this period's original iteration of Blanchiment. This will be the first time since Les Combes that we will not be on full throttle. This Blanchiment consists of a faster and very bumpier left-hand king, before you have to briefly use the brakes to slow down for the second part, which is a lot slower, but nevertheless you quickly have to go back onto the throttle to stabilize the car, get weight on those rear tires, and carry as much momentum through the corner as possible to make your way towards Clubhouse Corner. The last direction change before nowadays turn 1, La Source. We go on the brakes hard, harder than we've ever gone on before in this entire lap, and accelerate out of La Source as quickly as possible and as straight as possible to have as much traction as possible, and make our way down the hill to the finish line. At these speeds, the tires do not last for very long. This means that for the end of the sprint race, a lot of people will be having a lot of oversteer to fight against, barely having a chance to actually attack other drivers while focusing on trying to survive themselves. The feature race, however, will basically make a pit stop mandatory to be able to survive the race. It will be especially challenging with dirty air and of course with the poor visibility when you're right behind another car. So this will definitely be a race for the books no matter who wins. But enough of track maps, Google Maps shots and aerial shots. We are now going on board for a quick lap around the circuit with both myself and Devin. This finally brings us to our full onboard lap of the 14.1 kilometer circuit. The car ahead of me is Devin Browner. This lap was recorded during one of our joint practice sessions in the weeks leading up to the race event. And I decided to show this perspective to show just how insanely quick the reactions have to be of each driver in this situation to actually be able to manage to extract the maximum pace out of this vehicle. We're here at the exit of La Source, as would be usual for this layout, and about to start our lap. We go down the start of the lap, of course, on our way to Eau Rouge. Nothing special here still, just the tight bridge and the tighter Radion as we go up over the crest, leaving Radion behind. Now we go to the Camel Straight, that is not quite so straight yet in this layout. We're on the right kink and the left-hand kink now, before we make our way to Le Combe. Longer right-hander and then hard on the brakes for the long left-hander that Le Combe used to be. Now we completely leave the old GP circuit behind. We make it through the Haute de la Côte chicane. Just completely flat out, so nothing really too exceptional here. Lifting off a little bit there, because either way, this is a pretty much flat out corner now through Bournonville. We're easily over 340 kilometers an hour here. This can be flat out in clean air as well, but it's a little bit better to keep it through Malmedy now, with a little bit of a lift to try not overload the rear tires through the bumpy exit. This is now the Master Straight, leading up to the Master Kink. And you can see how little is visible actually behind that, so we're going to switch into the T-Cam quickly. Coming up to the Master Kink. It's really, really tricky, simply because you have such an enormously high speed as we are now on the Hollowell Straight. Once again, bump drafting, getting our speed up to 370 kph. Now through Hollowell. Oh, this can also still be taken flat out, obviously, but again, one of the points of not overloading your tires too much. It's now a Stavelot, the old corner, way before the new GP circuit was built, of course. And as we are now making our way past Stavelot on our way back to the old GP circuit area, now through La Carrière, across that man's doorstep. And now another kink, lifting off a little bit. You can see how much Devin is pushing at the front there as well with the big slide. I think that was one of the other guys as well. That was, yeah, unexpected traffic in that situation as we now make our way to Blanchimont. A two-part corner pretty much, hard on the brakes here again. Switching down to first gear is actually not the quickest way here, but I tried it out on this lap just to see if we could get a bit of extra rotation here. Now through Clubhouse and hard braking last time of the lap through La Source. You can see just how hard the tires are under stress already. Devin slid way wide there, where that was just a slight oversaturation on the brakes, a 240.4. We can still go a lot quicker. I think with Devin, we managed to go into the high 239s, which won't be race pace at all. But that's basically the fastest that these cars are capable around this circuit. It really displays the ferocity that the drivers in the old days had to bring to the circuit, and also, the patience, the endurance, simply because you have to keep thinking about, if we go up here once, of course, at these far higher speeds than the old F1 cars, we will have a terrible crash, but obviously in the simulator we'll be fine. And back in the day, it's honestly hard to believe nowadays that they used to race in these conditions in regular old Formula 1. So I hope this lap was entertaining to you guys. I hope that it was informative as well, and I hope that you will enjoy the race recap later on as well. So, I was Nicolas Hillebrand. My best regards to everyone, and good luck to all the drivers.